Hello, Internet. Welcome to a potentially furious episode of the Creative Differences Podcast. Haha.
Oh, God.
Shut up, Colin. I am Dallas, and I tend to shy away from calling movies overrated because it feels like I'm using my own opinions as an objective measurement.
Okay. I'm Colin, and I guess I've never really thought about the overrated, underrated thing. Because then, how do you? Yeah, because you also, because then you're also like you're implying that other people are wrong for liking it or not liking it, and that's just weird. And I don't really like that. Anyway, let's move on.
You know, your intro doesn't have to be a response to what I say in mine.
It doesn't, but you brought up an interesting point, and now
That's
I'm
fair.
thinking about it.
That's fair.
And I'm Demi, and it's been 25 days since we've had Gabby on a podcast.
You counted?
Yes,
It's
I'm
easy.
tired.
God.
Gabby's gone. We don't know where she is.
I'm very tired.
Happy Throwback Thursday, everybody. Today we're talking
Yeah,
about
guys.
Mad Max Fury Road. Dum dum dum. I don't know. They don't have a.
That sounded
Theme
like the
song.
Terminator.
It was Terminator. I just couldn't think of another one.
Oh, that's
This one doesn't really have it.
Oh my.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. It doesn't have a lot of music in general.
There's a lot of
Like
music.
it does with the guitar, but like I feel like there's a lot of silence in this movie.
Anyway, some
All
background.
right,
Anyway.
guys.
Mad Max Fury Road was directed by George Miller and written by George Miller and Brendan McCarthy and Nico Lathoris. Sure.
I
Cool,
don't
we'll
know
go
how
with
to pronounce
that.
it.
Yes. George Miller is known for the Mad Max movies, as well as Babe, Pig in the City, and the Happy Feet movies. So he's got range.
He said something about like if you held a gun to his head and asked him to direct another Happy Feet movie, he'd tell you to shoot him.
That sucks. He made two of them.
Right? Like how'd you
And
get
now
through
he's
the two
tired of them.
That's fair.
Now he is tired of them. So, guys, do you guys remember your first experience watching Mad Max Fury Road? Or was this your first time watching it?
I do remember my first time watching it. It was one of the first movies I watched for free when I worked at ArcLight because it came out like 2 weeks after I got hired.
Oh, nice.
And I did not like it. Something I realized about myself is I'm able to enjoy movies more upon a rewatch because I know what I'm getting myself into. I walked into the fourth Mad Max movie not knowing anything about the franchise and just expecting to watch the movie. And it just was not an enjoyable movie for me.
Huh.
That was 5 years ago.
Oh Lord.
Colin, have you seen this movie?
What?
We went to see it together.
Did we?
Yeah, our first time seeing it was together.
Cool, I'll believe you. I have no memory.
He
Those-
doesn't. He has
Goodness, Colin.
absolutely none.
I don't know what to tell you.
He has none. We went to see it together with my dad.
With your dad. That's I have
Yep,
done
my
so
dad.
few things with your dad, you'd think I would remember.
Yeah, we went with my dad. And not only did we go with my dad, it was at a time when Mad Max had been out for like a number of weeks, long enough that it was in the smaller theaters,
Oh.
but people were still going to see it because we kept that movie forever.
We did have it forever.
People kept going to see that movie, and it was so packed the night that we went to see it, we were stuck in row B,
Wow.
which, you know, C is the furthest I like going, but B was,
Yeah.
there was nowhere else to sit, and there was like no other showtime for the rest of the night.
Goodness
Well,
gracious,
alright
that's
then.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, no, I don't remember my first time watching it, but I know that I've seen it before. So
Got you.
there you go. Like, yeah,
You guys kind of answered that question together since you saw it together.
it works. It's good though. You can just tell me anything, and I'll probably believe you because I don't know. I can't contradict you.
He doesn't remember going to see Phantom of the Opera for my birthday, which
That
I
never
legitimately-
happened.
It
That
did.
literally did not happen.
I
It- no,
legitimately
no.
found evidence
That's
of
the
it
thing.
on my
I have seen
Facebook, bro.
so few musicals that I can remember the ones that I have seen, and I have not seen Phantom. I've seen the movie. I have not seen the actual show. That never happened.
He did see the show,
That
and I
didn't-
have legitimate
Nope.
proof of it on my Facebook.
I was replaced by a clone or something because I ain't seen that shit.
Colin,
He has.
Dallas.
you just said that she could tell you anything and you'd believe that you did it.
Well, yeah,
But you draw the line at watching Phantom of the Opera?
because the thing is, I've seen so few musicals because I don't have money to go to musicals. Who do you think I am? Also, I don't like that many musicals, so the ones that I like, they stick in my head, and I do not remember seeing Phantom ever.
Bro, I'm very certain that I have receipts that I have sent you.
I know that you do. I just it didn't happen.
It
All
didn't happen, but I have receipts. Okay.
Mhm.
Anyway, let's move on, shall we? To the story of Mad Max Fury Road, which is very simple.
Do we want to give like a?
Yeah, I'll give a quick little synopsis. Max ends up in a situation where he is basically taken captive in a place called the Citadel, and he's used as a blood bag for a dying young man. And in the midst of all this, he just so happens to arrive at the Citadel when the sex slaves of the leader have run off with an imperator.
Just gonna throw some words out there, huh?
Yeah. So he ends up on this crazy chase after these sex slaves and then ends up on the chase with them once he manages to escape the Citadel. So it's basically about him trying to help these 5 women get to freedom. 6 women, actually.
Yeah, wait, is it sick? I don't. I'm not gonna count.
It's
Well,
6 because there's 5 sex slaves and then Imperator Furiosa.
Got it.
It sounds very complicated when I say it, but literally it's just a chase movie across
Yeah,
a
it's just
desert.
yeah.
a very long chase. It's a long car chase.
It's also like it's a chase that goes one way and then turns around and goes back. Like it's
Yes. It's so simple, but like I really like that. I kind of went way beyond what we were actually supposed to do. We were only supposed to rewatch Fury Road for this podcast. I had a marathon where I watched all 4 Mad Max movies because I realized I had only seen 2 of them.
Huh.
Huh.
So I watched all 4, and not only did I watch all 4, I also watched the black and chrome version of Fury Road.
I
that
saw that
version.
on your
Having
So
thing.
watched Fury Road last night, I do not understand why that version exists. Like it just feels lesser.
well, George Miller originally wanted the films to be in black and white, so he made a version of this one in black and white. But
That makes sense.
watching the first 3 movies first and then watching Fury Road, it made me kind of appreciate this story even more just because Max always just seems to stumble into these situations. He's very much like a kind of a Western sort of hero where like, Western heroes kind of just stumble into town and something just happens to be going wrong when they stumble in and they help out whoever needs help and then they go about their business and never come back.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good
That happens
comparison.
with like every Mad Max movie. They're all very simple stories to follow, but they've all got like really great themes, and that's I really like that, especially with Fury Road.
So you are a fan of the story and its simplicity.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes stories don't need to be super complicated and complex. Sometimes the simplest story can be the most effective.
Colin, what do you think about the story?
Man, this movie slaps. I don't know if I thought so at the time when I first saw it, but
I
man,
think you
this
did. I
movie
think me and you both really enjoyed it.
slaps. God, this movie is so much my shit. And like, it's interesting, right? Because this is the only Mad Max movie I've seen, and I have no desire to watch the ones before it because going into this movie not knowing anything made it so much more interesting. I don't know how this world works, and this movie does not really explain it, and that's 100% fine. Like,
Interesting.
it just kind of throws stuff at you, and I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine. Why are your cars like I don't know. Why does the guy have the guitar? That doesn't matter. I don't know, but it's cool. It's awesome. Like so much
I
of
want
this
to be
movie
honest.
feels like what's up?
I want to be honest with you. If you watch the first 3 movies, they don't really tell you why some of this stuff is like this either.
Hell yeah. So much of this movie just feels like they wanted what was it to be as cool as possible and they didn't care if it made sense. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I vibe 100% with that. Like this movie is just cool all the way through and it's like, yeah, this is 100% my shit. Also like I don't know, I find it weird that this is a Mad Max movie cuz this movie is not about him. He contributes so little to the actual plot that like you have to give it the name. You have to name it after him, obviously, because it's a part of the series and blah blah blah. But like, this is not his movie, and honestly, that fucks.
I feel the same way about the first Mad Max movie because I feel like he doesn't really play a very big it doesn't really become much about him until the like second half of the first Mad Max movie.
Huh?
Like there's so many other things going on and yes, he's in the first half and like they're showing him in like more emotional moments. So you're like, yeah, the movie's about him and the guy's name is Max, so it's his movie, but so much other stuff is also happening in the first half to set up what happens to him in the second half that I was just like, are we sure this movie is about him?
Yeah, this one definitely doesn't feel like it is.
Yeah, but I also really liked that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Just
know. Just this movie is like, God, it's so my shit, which I wouldn't expect it to be. Because
yeah, because
honestly,
it's just
I feel
like
like
you don't like action movies, and this movie is
I
just action.
don't, but I think it's an action movie, but not in the sense that I'm used to seeing. When I think action movie, I think someone with doing like fist fighting or guns, and that's fine. But I think when you put people in cars, I'm much more interested. They also do really
Interesting.
interesting stuff with like they have the spears that explode or the people on poles that just bend for no reason. I
The
don't know why that's
polecats.
there, but it's great. Like I think it stands out to me because it's the action in it is so different from what I'm used to seeing.
That makes sense.
Dallas,
Yes,
you haven't said your thoughts.
that's true. I haven't.
This is like the most Collins ever talked about a movie.
It is. That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt the moment that we were having. Also, I still don't really like this movie. Like you said about sometimes the story can be simple, but it didn't have enough for me to stay invested the whole time. Like action wise, it's great, obviously. But I think I got about halfway through and I was like, okay, but what else though? Like the car chases are fun. Boom, boom, vroom, vroom. Explosions are cool. But I just wasn't invested. Like I think I would rather experience this as a video game or something. Because I
There
think I
are
could
Mad Max
definitely,
video games.
yeah, I could definitely like have fun with that.
If it were a video game, would you? I feel like that might make the feeling even more pronounced because you would realize how on rails you are, and you wouldn't have a lot of deviation, assuming it followed the linear path that the movie does. Like if that's your issue, I don't know that it being a game would solve it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, because I know that now we look at video games and they're basically like movies. Like The Last of Us has a great story and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I can play a very simple game. Like I grew up playing Super Mario. You just jump on mushrooms and bricks. I
Yeah.
don't need my games to have a super complex story or characters that I need to latch onto. I just need it to be fun. This movie looks like it would be fun to play as a video game. But for a movie, like a 2 hour narrative, I want more of a story and I want characters that I can latch onto more.
And that's where I think the problem lies because this movie, I feel like when it's not being all action heavy, it's about the characters and following the characters. And I love these characters. So we should probably transition into them.
That is a good transition to the characters.
It is. So let's start with, I guess, with Max because the movie's named after him.
It's true.
That's fair.
Yeah, Tom Hardy is great at playing crazy in various ways.
I love Tom Hardy in this movie. And like, I don't know, it might be my favorite Tom Hardy role, possibly.
Interesting.
So watching him play Max. Also, this movie, after watching the first three, makes me a little bit curious as to what's happened to Max between the third movie and the fourth movie because he seems a lot more. Well, he seems madder in this movie
Did you?
than yes in the previous three movies. He's far more traumatized than he was in those. He doesn't speak very much in this movie, especially in comparison to the last few of them. I love that Max only says what he thinks is necessary to say, and then he says nothing more.
Yeah, he kind of just grunts a lot. But you said, talking about the previous three, that girl he kept seeing in this one, was she in the
She's not in
previous?
the previous. No, she's not. She's in one of the video games.
What?
Yeah,
So even if I had seen those movies, I would be like, who is this child?
yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But at the same time, like it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like she's meant to represent all of the people that he's failed to save.
Definitely.
But if you were going to do that, why wouldn't you pick a face from the previous movies?
There's nobody in particular that he's really failed to save that he was aiming to save in the previous films.
Huh.
Okay. So we're just like somewhere in between 3 and 4. He failed to save some people.
I think it's somewhere in the entirety of the series, just 1, 2, 3, 4. He's failed to save people. I mean, except for the fact that in the first film he fails to save his wife and child.
I feel
That's
like
like
we
the one that's the most impactful because that's the reason why he went insane.
I feel like he should have been seeing his wife and child. Like if my wife and kids died and then I went crazy, I don't think I'd be seeing hallucinations of random white girl number 6. I think I'd be seeing my family.
I mean, he sees hallucinations of multiple people.
Yeah, like in this movie, it's like the white girl, the old Aboriginal man. Are they in Australia? Is this supposed to be Australia?
This is supposed to be Australia. Yes, they did not
Okay,
film this one in Australia. This is the first one not filmed in Australia.
got it. That's just unrelated question. I just was curious.
But yeah, I also love that Max just always happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, he can't catch a break.
It's just everything that happens. Colin,
Me.
thoughts on Max, if you have any?
It's interesting because you were talking about how he doesn't say much, and it got me thinking of like that I don't like westerns. I've never liked westerns, and like the most recent experience I have with them is like The Mandalorian, and I did not like that show mainly because the main character was so boring because he didn't say anything. He said 5 things, but that was about it. I think with Max, it works because the entire movie he's in some kind of danger. So his want can be as simple as I'm in a crappy situation and I'd like to not be in this situation right now. And I will do what I need to do to get out of that. So, like, he's not very interesting and he doesn't feel very deep of a character, but he serves his purpose. He works.
That's fair.
Next up, we have Furiosa, who, in my opinion, is the best character in the movie. Like, hands down, no competition.
I mean,
I
it's
feel
funny
like that's
because like
not. Sorry,
her
go ahead.
competition is Max, who just grunts, and
See, exactly. It's
the
like,
5 plot devices she hangs out with. Like
There's
there aren't a lot
Nux.
of. Oh, there is Nux. Yeah, he's.
Freaking love
I feel for the
Nux.
little dude toward the end. Like he just wants to prove himself. Initially, he's like not good, but he turns it around.
I think my thing with Furiosa is that I love that she is Max's equal. And after watching 3 movies where Max has no equal, it's really nice to see him have somebody else in the world who can keep up with him. Like, she almost takes him in a fist fight, basically, in close quarter combat.
Right.
I love that she's a badass, but she's also really vulnerable and she's really raw. That breakdown scene in the wasteland, oh my gosh, it's incredibly beautiful. And I came out of this movie the first time wanting more of Furiosa, and I know that I'm not the only one. Most people still want more Furiosa in this Mad Max universe.
well, in
Right.
theory, that's happening, but very slowly.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of other characters to talk about. It's just a bunch of weird looking people, and then like the good guys.
Pretty much.
Colin, you have a favorite
I
character
mean,
in this
yeah,
movie?
the bad guys are all very weird looking in all these
I mean, I
movies.
guess if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Furiosa, but I think I like the concept of Furiosa more than the character herself.
Interesting.
Like, she doesn't take any shit. She can handle her business. Like the scene where Max is trying to shoot the light on that dude's car, and like he takes 2 shots and he misses, and then she just comes over and he just like wordlessly hands it over to her. Like, yeah, you know that she's gonna get the job done. Is like, that shit's great. That's my shit. But like, I don't know. I feel like none of the characters in this movie are terribly defined. They are what they need to be. Like, this movie feels like I know every story, unless you start with a character's birth. Like, every story starts in the middle of someone's life, but this really feels like the tiniest slice possible of someone's life where we don't know anything about them outside of it. And it works, but I can't really say that, like, oh, these characters really stuck with me. I want to know more about them as people. Just like, they were cool in this thing.
Yeah,
Which
I don't
is
really
how the
feel a
Mad
need.
Max series works.
It's always like that.
Yeah, that's typically how all the side characters work. The only person that you really get to know is Max, and that's if you've seen the first Mad Max movie. The first Mad Max movie is basically just an origin story for Max. It doesn't even feel like the same as the others because society is still declining in the first movie. So everything is still sort of similar to our world, but still like apocalyptic in a way. And then once you get to the second movie, it starts looking more like what Fury Road looks like. But yeah, the characters are always kind of that way. Like, we're just stepping into the middle of these people's situations and their disparity.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, I have notes on the other characters as well, since you guys sound like you are ready to move forward. The 5 sex slaves, the splendid, Angarad, capable, Toast the knowing, Cheetah the fragile, the Dag. I mean, I agree. Like, my only criticism of this movie is that I wish I knew more about them, but I still really like them. And I feel that even though you don't find out enough about them, there is still like enough of their personalities to separate them. Splendid was always my favorite. And like, her
Which one
death
is she?
makes Splendid is their leader. She's the one who makes me sad
Does
freaking
she have
every
white
single
hair?
time. No, that's probably you're probably thinking of the Dag.
All right,
She's the one
cool.
who gets ran over, right?
Yeah, she's the pregnant one.
Yeah.
Oh,
She's the one who,
okay.
yeah, like I said, I get sad whenever she dies. She's the only one who dies.
All right.
Yeah, but I liked her. She was like clearly the leader of the group, and she had so much spirit, and she was courageous, and the girls all seemed to really adore her. And then there was Capable, who was just extremely compassionate, and I like her relationship with Nux because there's that scene where they kick him out of the war rig, but then later on when she sees him again at the back of the war rig, she doesn't immediately like try to fight him or like hurt him or
Mhm.
anything like that. She sees a scared little boy who's really really sad, and instead she tries to, she talks to him and she has a conversation with him and she gets to know him and she sees into him. And she doesn't have to. I think most action movies would have just had her like call for help or kick his butt or something like that. But she's like, no, I want to talk to him. Something's wrong. Toast is like a badass in training. I like that she's got the knowledge of the guns and the ammo and that her expertise is kind of introduced in a very small moment. And she's played by Zoe Kravitz. So bonus points.
Of course.
Cheeto is the one who always wants to turn back, and you always in a situation like this when you've kind of betrayed the bad guy, you always need that one person who like when stuff gets bad, they got to be like, "Yo, let's turn back, man. Like we can probably still make it out of this if we just go back." And I like that the scene with her creates an expectation later on in the film where you think that she's running away from them, but she ends up not. And then the dag I grew to love a little bit more as I was watching it again because like she's so weird and just slightly eccentric, which makes sense because dag is Aussie slang for a person who is entertainingly eccentric.
Okay.
And her small amounts of time with the keeper of the seeds, I think, is really lovely, despite the fact that there's so little screen time devoted to that. Like it's like a nice little relationship, but they're maybe on screen together for 2-3 minutes for the entirety of this 2-hour movie.
You said the keeper of the seed?
Yeah, keeper of the seeds.
Is that one of the old ladies?
She was the old lady who had the bag full of all the plants and stuff.
Got it. Got it.
And then there's
I mean,
Nux.
Nux.
I
Little
love
Nux. Little warm
Nux.
bodies.
Yeah, he's like my little war boy. It's probably my favorite Nicholas Holt role, actually.
Interesting. He's had some good ones.
I quoted him for weeks after I saw this movie. The amount of times I would say, I live, I die, I live again, while standing at box office was ridiculous.
Goodness gracious.
But I think the character is very amusing, but also very tragic because he's so very childlike and he doesn't know any better. He just wants to do his best. And like it's
Yeah.
so sad because he can't quite do it until you get to the end.
Yeah, he's not super competent, but
But
he
he
just really
wants
wants
to
to prove
be.
himself.
Yeah, and I love Nux. And plus, there was a line that I've never really noticed before when they take down Furiosa, and he's so excited because he's like, "Oh my goodness, like Immortan Joe is gonna ask us for anything that we want," and blah blah blah. Like, what are you gonna ask for? And Max goes, "That's my jacket," and just like strips it off of him. And Nux is just like, all right, man. I mean, you can ask for more than a jacket." And
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such a baby. What's going on here? But yeah, those are all the characters. I think you guys yeah, you guys are right. There's like not much to them. They're kind of in the middle of what they're doing. They're in the middle of a story. I still really like them and I still there's something about them and I think it's just the way that George Miller writes dialogue and there isn't much dialogue. It's all in the action as well. I really like them.
Yeah, I didn't really have any dialogue I was a particular fan of in this movie, but it was all surrounded by explosions, so that was pretty cool.
Well, we can move on to the visuals and the sounds.
Speaking of explosions,
Speaking of explosions,
yeah, stuff be blowing up.
stuff does be blowing up and like not in visual effects either. It's all mostly practical. I think they said like 90% of this movie is practical effects.
That's kind of dope. Every time I watch this movie, well, I only watched this movie twice, but the two times I watched this movie, I don't know if this is an obscure reference or not. It just feels like a really long version of the intro to Rock Band 2. Anyone who out there who's played Rock Band 2, like it starts with these bands on cars and they're like riding next to each other. One of the guys has a microphone that's on a chain, but the chain has like spikes on it and they're swinging at each other. When I saw this movie, I was just like, this is Rock Band 2. But I don't know a lot of people who are familiar enough with the game to know that intro very well.
I wouldn't be surprised if that intro was inspired by the Mad Max films.
Maybe, I don't know, because I don't know how much they all look like this one.
2 and 3 look a lot more like this one, but all of them have a punk rock meets apocalypse feel. And the first one was made in the late 70s. So,
Yeah, they've been doing this for like 40 years.
I mean, they took a break for about 30 of them.
That's true. He did 3 and then he did Babe and Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2. And then he made this
Anyway,
one. And
yes.
now he's
Anyway,
75 years old.
we're talking about visuals and sound, which I am a lover of both of those things in this movie.
That makes sense.
I mean, the cinematography is just it's gorgeous. It's like I think of movies that I love the cinematography for. And this is one of those movies that's up there for me. There are like just certain movies that I'm just like, yeah, the cinematography and that, the visuals, oh my gosh, it's stunning. Like, and this is one of those movies. I'm also a really big sucker for like large scale cinematography, which this film does a lot because of the desert landscapes.
Yeah, it's a lot of open space.
And I love that. It looks so good on screen. And the black and chrome edition really kind of brings that out, like the lighting and the framing. But I still I prefer the color one because the color grade on this film just is, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. The warm and cool contrast is like some of the most effective I've seen in any film. I could stare at this movie all day. Like there's the shot of the girls in the back of the war rig with like a candle between them, and it like lights them orange, but everything else around them is blue. And in black and white, that shot just did not hit the same way.
See, the thing is, like, I like the way this movie looks to a certain extent, but the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, you remember how there was that whole trend of how every movie poster was blue and orange?
Yes.
That is what this movie is that. And
Yes,
it's like, that's all it is. And it's like,
because it's the most basic use of color theory that you can use. It's the easiest one that you can use. But like I said, I think Mad Max does it the most effective that I've seen in most places.
I think for me, this movie gets away with it because it's like, I don't know, this movie feels very, I know it isn't, but it feels very simple in everything that it does. Like the characters are not that deep and the plot is not that deep and the colors are, you got two colors and they make so much use of those two colors, and it's like, all right, that's fine. And I guess it just works because I don't know, the whole thing is cool and I'm willing to forgive it, the things that feel like you're not doing as much as you could be doing.
I was reading up on how they did the color grade on this movie though, and it's just God, the amount of work that went into it. Because all the scenes at night are shot during the day.
That's
See, that's
interesting.
one of those things that I don't, it's weird to say I don't like it, but it's like I don't. It's like how Mandalorian, they were like, oh, all the outside scenes were shot like in front of a screen. Like, no. Why?
But
I don't like that.
they did it for a very technical reason. It was because they wanted to be able to, if you shoot at night in like if you shoot in dark spaces, you start to lose a lot of the detail in your shots because things are dark and you start to lose it in the shadows. They shot it during the day with their exposure turned up even higher than usual because they wanted to keep all of the detail in the shots but still be able to color it to look like it was night and still not lose anything in the shadows. They also did a thing, and I feel bad for the color grader who did this. Whoever did this, props to you. George Miller says that most people's attention goes to the eyes on screen. During the color grade, they did a thing where like they would rotoscope all the eyes and make them sharper and like give them more detail and more contrast so that they were clearer and so that you were when you would look into the eyes, like
I
you could
mean,
see
some
them
of that is
very clearly.
obvious. Like, I noticed one shot where Furiosa looks right at the camera and her eyes are like bright as hell. And then the next
Yeah.
shot, they're like normal eyes. And it's like, cool, you went back to that shot and you very, like, you
No, but
pumped
that's
that up.
every shot. It's every
No,
shot.
there's definitely
No, it's
contrast
every
because
one.
I know there are some shots where her eyes are like, there's that one shot I noticed because her eyes were bright as hell, and then the next shot they were like a normal color where it didn't look like she had high beams going behind her irises.
It might, but like they said that every shot they definitely like were making sure that the eyes were super clear. On top of that, they also sharpened every single frame of this film to pull out even more detail and make it look grittier. So a lot went into the
That is a
visuals of this
dog.
movie and it's remarkable and it's beautiful and it pays off. Are your dogs okay, Colin?
They're fine, but one of them decides she wants to make noise, and you know, I don't know why. I don't know that she knows why.
Is she just barking at nothing? Because if so, your house is probably haunted.
I mean, no, I mean, somebody could be across the street, somebody could be nearby. I don't know, but you know, she thinks it's an issue and she won't stop.
Also, the other thing about this film that impressed me was the sound design from the moment I saw it.
Elaborate.
I just remember when I first saw the scene, the first shot of him where he's facing the horizon and you see the lizard and then you hear the lizard, but you're also hearing the voices that he's hearing in his head and it goes up to him and then you hear that crunch when he steps on it.
Uh huh.
Like, oh my gosh, like from that moment I was just like, why is the sound in this movie just like so it's very rare for me to notice sound things
Uh huh.
I can't put to words what it is about this movie that the sound really just stuck out to me. But I remember the first time, this is the first movie where I've ever come out and been like, oh my gosh, the sound in that movie was just, oh my, what is happening here? What is this? It's perfect. And I was so happy that it won the Oscar for it because it deserved them. I am not a sound person. I make movies and I dread whenever I get to that part of post production because I'm not good at it. So when I hear it done that well, I'm just like, I wish I was that good at that because I'm just not. The sound design is really cool. The war rig, the sounds that it makes, they have like whale sounds under it to make it sound more like a beast. And then when the war
Interesting.
rig is destroyed at the end of the movie, it's literally just a slow motion sound of a bear roaring.
Huh. Would not have picked up on that.
Exactly. Like sound design is amazing when you do it really well. I love this film in all of its technical aspects. Like I love watching movies for entertainment, but I also love when you can entertain me and like amaze me with the technicalities of a film.
Yeah, that's how I feel about some movies.
And this movie for me, especially after watching the first 3, feels like this is the full realization of what this series is supposed to be.
Moving on, favorite aspects. I'm gonna go first because mine is short. That random dude with the guitar is my favorite thing about this movie.
The Doof Warrior.
He's just playing that. He's so consistent, and he's like, I know my job. I play this guitar. I play it well. I shoot fire sometimes. I'm gonna do what I came to do, and that's him. That's his story.
I think the coolest part is that his it's all practical. His wagon that he's riding on and his guitar is all practical. His guitar actually shoots fire.
As it should. He's my favorite part.
It's like that's not visual effects. I'm just like, why? This is insanity.
Okay, but like think about it though. If you're the dude who got to do that, wouldn't you kind of want it to be practical?
Oh, absolutely. But like also I'd be scared for my life.
I don't
I
think I
mean, yeah,
would.
valid.
I don't think I want to shoot fire out of a guitar. I don't even know how to play the guitar. First of all, I sure don't know how to play with fire.
I like playing with fire. I don't know how to play a guitar, but I will certainly strum on one if I see one.
Oh yeah,
So
you are into fire.
I do like fire.
That's
Forgot
a
that about you.
phrase that we can just put out there for the world.
I like fire. Why is that? It's not
I just
weird.
I think like pyromania is one of the signs they look for in kids to see if they're gonna be like serial killers.
I'm not an arsonist. I just like fire.
It's got to start somewhere.
Yes, well, I can promise you I am not an arsonist. So there.
That's good. Glad to hear it.
Oh my goodness. Colin, what's your favorite aspect of the film?
Jesus Christ. Hmm. What is my favorite aspect of the film? I don't know how to say it. Like, I guess just how committed the film is to being kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Like from the jump when Max is trying to escape the Citadel, like all the motion is sped up and it's like this doesn't why did you do this? I don't know, but it works. And I'm vibing. And like every 5 minutes in this movie, I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are there crow people on stilts? I don't know. But I fuck with it. Like it feels like the kind of thing that I don't understand how you got enough people on board to be like, yeah, and we're gonna have these people on poles, and they're gonna do this, and this guy's gonna be playing a flaming guitar, and you had enough people who were like, yes, absolutely, I'm down. It's like, all right, cool. Just I envy someone who can come up with ideas that are that crazy and make it totally work.
Yeah, I agree. This series is it's just insanity, and this is the peak of that. This is the pinnacle.
But it's like it's insanity in a way that works because I've watched plenty of anime that go off the rails, and sometimes insanity like can get you can go too far where you lose me. But this, it's like I think because it's insane, but none of the characters think it is. Like they're just vibing.
They are in their world, and it feels more plausible because they believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can agree with that. I actually have the movie playing right now as we're discussing it. It's playing in the background because I like looking at it.
nice.
Favorite aspects of this film? I mean, like, I think I've talked enough about this film. There's this podcast literally is not long enough for me to discuss everything that I love about it. I think that it's a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. It's I don't know. I like don't want to say masterpiece, but like I kind of do. Like Colin said, it's crazy. The film is crazy, and on top of the film universe itself being crazy, the things that they did to make this movie. are crazy. The polecats are like practical. Why you didn't have to do all this practically, but George Miller did, and it's awesome. I like the dialogue when there is dialogue because it just I think it characterizes the world and the people in it. It's so strange sometimes the way that they speak, like calling gasoline guzzling. These war boys practice some sort of religion in like cars and V8s and engines, which makes sense in this universe. But like, they speak like it and it's weird, but it's put together so well. Thematically, like I love movies with a lot of like rich thematics in it, and this one's all about survival and about home and uniting, and it's really good. There are plenty of people who have discussed why this movie is so good, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. They've done it a lot more articulately than I possibly can. But Colin, you were mentioning earlier that there were plans to make more of these movies.
Yes, I was. Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
I know that George Miller said that he has two more stories that he would like to tell. One that is about Mad Max and one that is about Furiosa, I believe.
I thought he said that he had two Max stories and then Furiosa as well. Not sure.
I mean, either way, that's fine with me. I will see them as long as George Miller is the one writing and directing them.
Well, he's pushing 80, so he better get to work.
Well, he and WB are like, beefing right now. So,
Heard about that.
yeah, so if they could stop beefing so that we could get these last three movies, that would be dope because I don't want to see a Mad Max movie unless it's done by George Miller.
That's fair. We'll see what happens.
I
Hopefully,
don't know if I
you
don't
know.
know if anybody would have the insane creativity to pull it off like he does.
I mean, you could do what they did with Blade Runner and get Denis Villeneuve in, and
Yeah,
maybe
but
he could do it.
I don't know if he has the insanity that George Miller does to make these films.
He would at least make it really pretty.
It would be pretty, but I don't want it to just be pretty. I want it to hit this level of crazy.
Mm.
Because like you said with the frame rate thing, that's also something that George Miller was playing with this movie. Most of this movie, or I think they said half of this movie, was not shot in regular frame rate. They shot it in a different frame rate and then sped it up or slowed it down depending on if people were reading it well enough or not.
Hmm.
And like that's why the movie feels so jerky sometimes, and that's why Max feels as frenetic as he does when he is sped up to match his own madness and his insanity. And it kind of goes less jerky the further along you get in the movie because Max is becoming less insane. So like these are things that George Miller is thinking of as he's making this film. Like I want George Miller to make more. I want him to be the one making them.
Well, George, if you hear that, get to work. Take
Yeah.
it to another studio if you have to. I don't know how these things work.
But if they did make more, what would you guys expect from them?
Um,
The thing about this series is it feels like, I mean, I haven't seen the other ones, but the vibe that I get is like this is basically just movies about this dude wandering around, getting into trouble, and then moving on. And I wonder how long you can sustain that without any sort of like overarching plot or end goal.
Mission Impossible did it for a while.
Okay, I also haven't seen those movies, so
but
maybe that
also they got
makes.
Tom Cruise jumping off of planes and helicopters and buildings.
Mad Max has people jumping off of cars and polecats and running over people, and I don't know, man.
You gotta throw him off a helicopter.
I think that was in movie two or three.
Oh, well, good. They're on the right track.
They had a gyrocopter.
I've heard that term before. I don't know.
Yeah, if they made more, I would expect more amazing action, more crazy visuals, and like more. I would expect them to the stories to still be just as simple as they have been, but still just as thematically rich.
Yeah, just I expect car chases and ugly looking bad guys.
Yeah, they get uglier by the movie.
That's unfortunate. I mean, this will probably be my last Mad Max movie, but I'm not looking forward to seeing how ugly they get the next couple.
Oh my goodness! All right, guys. Well, that's it. That's all of it. I mean, that's most of it. Have so much more to say about this movie, but like I'm not articulate enough right now to express it. And I don't
That's
have the
fair. We've
time.
been expressing for a minute.
I've been expressing for a minute. You guys were
It's
expressing every
mostly
so
you.
often. Yeah.
I'm kind of like Colin when I don't have particularly positive things to say about a movie. I don't say a lot.
I mean, it works. Like, if you want to bust a nut over this movie, like, cool. That gives us, a decent podcast.
That's true. She can bust her nut. We can fall back. Although you like the movie too, so you should have been busting with her.
I don't tend to bust over movies or in the podcast in general.
It's very true.
Well,
Also,
that's been fun.
shout out to Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron for getting through this movie because they apparently had beef throughout the entirety of filming,
Oh no,
which
that
probably helped the
sucks.
tension between the two characters, to be honest.
That sucks. I like them from what I've heard of them.
The two of them and George Miller, they all just apparently weren't getting along on set. Tom Hardy said that he couldn't see George Miller's vision, which fair. I don't think anybody would, but he couldn't see George Miller's vision. And then when he saw it for the first time, he went up to George Miller and sincerely apologized because he was like, "I'm so sorry. Apparently, I was wrong."
Well, that's some kind of resolution, I guess.
And then Charlize and Tom made up after filming was over, I guess.
That's good because I have them both in my X-Men fan cast, and I want them to work together again.
They're both really great. It can't be easy working in the desert for that long.
You got to do what you got to do. I
That's
mean, the
true.
movie worked. So, like, whatever they had to do to get there, like, it worked.
That's why Tom Hardy apologized. It worked.
All right, thank you everyone for listening to me busting nut over this movie for 50 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't know, whatever she edited it down to. Let us know what you think about Mad Max Fury Road, and let me know if you've played Rock Band 2, because I'm starting to feel like no one has except for me.
It's
It's
just
not really
you.
that important.
I
But I just
think
want.
what it is that
What is it? Is
a lot of people have played like a game in the Rock Band series or Guitar Hero, but they all kind of blend together, and so nobody can like pick them apart.
They're all the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. I need them to pick this one apart because of the intro, and then they can go back to ignoring them. Anyway, thank you, Crown Digital, Brandon and Io, for putting us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to me for editing, putting us on YouTube, and remembering all these character names because I was not going to.
I wrote them all down, as well as the actresses who play them. Forgot to mention that, but it's fine.
That's good. I know Capable, the redhead, was in Logan Lucky because I just watched that like a couple nights ago.
She's also in a Justin Timberlake music video.
That is your area of expertise.
It is indeed. Also, the one who plays Blended is dating Jason Statham.
I was never going to know that. Anyway, Colin, thanks for, being you, being here, doing your thing.
I try.
If you need some social interaction during these trying social distant times, you can talk to us on the medias. We're on Twitter at y'all_different. We're on Tumblr and Instagram at the Creative Differences Podcast. And we're on Facebook at just Creative Differences. You can find me personally on Twitter and Instagram at a king named Simba. Colin, where do they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Duck McDuck.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dreamy Films. Dreamy is spelled DREEMI. Somebody come talk to me about Mad Max Fury Road, because honestly, I should watch this movie more because it's awesome. Thank you guys for listening.
Time out. Colin,
Uh-huh.
do you have a Twitter for Gabby today?
I see. The problem is I never think of them in advance, and then we get here, and I'm like, oh, I was supposed to think of something for Gabby, and then I don't.
That's
Dallas,
fair.
do you have one?
You can find Gabby on Twitter at Wingardium Furiosa.
See, I was
All right.
going to go for the Furiosa, not Furiosa. That's her description. That's her
text,
about.
It just doesn't work as
Nope,
well.
you can make it work. You can make it work, and it's in her about section.
You can definitely
All right.
make it work because you can just Fury you capitalize the O and then capitalize the SA and the other one. It's just as a Twitter name, that's just a lot.
No, that's why I said it's in the about description.
You're right. You right as hell. Anyway, it's been different, y'all. Bye.